Well, hello, friends, and welcome to a new chapter in the unfolding of the work we're doing with Spirit Partners. I have for her first session with you, let's call it interview and discussion, Alistair Hawks. Alistair, welcome, welcome, welcome. I have introduced you to Alistair briefly in the introductory video that I did, saying that we share in common some pretty intensive work that we've done with Dr. Lyanna Mattulich. And Alistair is carrying that forward into the world. And I think we are very, very fortunate that that's happening because Lyanna, as we call her, is such a gift to humanity. The work, she's a genius. The depth of the work, the fast and incredibly deep way the work works is remarkable. And we're going to find out all about that. So, Alistair, fire away. Thank you. It's so good to have you here. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for having me, Bill. This is really exciting. I am always energized by thinking about these things that you're referring to, and particularly by actually utilizing them. So I'm happy to be here to talk about what's becoming my life's work too.
Great. Super. Tell us. Yeah, obviously there's a backstory of,
Yeah.
you were born at a very young age and then you got here. Uh,
Yes.
but tell us about what brought you ultimately then to Lyanna, and
Yeah.
then where things have gone from there.
Yeah, that's really great. It's an interesting story, not just because it's my life, but because it weaves together a number of the elements of this Hike for Evolution system that was developed by Dr. Lyanna Mattulich. And how I came to Lyanna, I'll just, I guess, start at the beginning. My
Please.
mother brought me and my siblings here to Colorado. I'm in Colorado. And we came here in the mid 70s. And at that time, my mom began working for the Biofeedback Society, which was then named the Biofeedback Society of America. And it's now called the or Association for Applied Psychophysiology and Biofeedback. But back in the day, it was called the Biofeedback Society, and she ran the meetings and workshops and developed a relationship with Elmer Green, who is sometimes called the grandfather of biofeedback. And that's relevant because biofeedback training is one of the major elements of this Hike for Evolution system. And so fast forward another 20 years or so, and Elmer Green visited with my mother again and asked her to become the kind of midwife of what is called the International Society for the Study of Subtle Energies in Energy Medicine, or
Uh-huh.
otherwise known as ICEM. And what ICEM's mission is, uh, is to build a bridge between Western medicine and alternative healing practices and to really explore the role that consciousness plays in health and wellness and healing. And so, as a 20-something-year-old, when my mom began organizing the International Society for the Study of Subtle Energies in Energy Medicine, I worked for her as an admin. And my job
Oh,
was
wow.
the membership services manager. And so I welcomed all the new members and worked on publications, and they published a scientific journal on alternative healing practices, which I participated in by editing, um, uh, junior editing, where I began reading all of these amazing
Uh-huh.
articles on
Yes.
peer-reviewed science on alternative healing practices, or what in those days were really called alternative healing practices. Now they're called complementary and alternative medicine, and there's a whole or part of the organization of the National Institutes of Health, which actually look at that stuff. And so that was my early exposure to what the materials Spirit Partners is looking at. And at the second annual conference for ICEAM, I met Lyanna Mattulich, who showed up in
Oh,
her um, llama robes. So she had just left Mount Shasta at the time and came to the Subtle Energies Conference to talk about her work as a mindfulness teacher, as a medical doctor from Argentina, and as a neuroscientist. And be so I met her, and as you and I both know, Bill, when Leanna meets somebody who has a little sparkle in their
yep.
energy field, she will invite them to tea. And so I was 22 and Leanna invited me to tea, and I thought, what am I doing here? But I went, and since then, that was 1992, she has pushed me and prodded me and encouraged me and given me the information that I've needed to really put this work out into the world in a much bigger way than she was capable of doing um, at in the developmental stage she was at in her business and entrepreneurial I guess phase. Um, so anyway, that's how I came to know Leanna, and that is how I came to be here on this interview with you, Bill.
Well, you've left out quite a bit of territory there, which we're going to recapture. But let me set the stage about this remarkable woman, Liana, because I first met her through one of her students, Carol Fisher, and Carol was having a reception, kind of an outdoor party reception thing on her back deck one Sunday for Liana, and I don't know what the occasion was, but she invited me. And Carol said, "Well, Liana is very particular about who she takes on as students, et cetera, et cetera." And there was a bit of an implication. Well, it certainly won't be you. And so um, I walked through the kitchen to the back door to the deck where several people were out there seated, and it was sort of a horseshoe thing. And Liana was sitting over there by herself. And I stood there and I was just looking for, where should I go where there's an empty seat? And she goes, "You come here and sit with me." Okay. And all the rest is history. All right. Um, because the first sessions I had with her, and I mean, I had very, very little exposure to either biofeedback or neurofeedback. And what I learned with her in 2 days is by the second day, I was doing out of body experiences. It's like, oh my goodness sakes, the extraordinary depth and
Yeah,
power of what she was teaching by that time. And that was 2009.
yeah.
So, I'm sure things had advanced considerably from the time you're talking about initially. So please proceed.
Yeah. Well, I mean the work itself, biofeedback itself is an amazing tool. And to have that early exposure, I was 12 when my mom was running the biofeedback meetings. And one of the biofeedback practitioners at that time, Joel Levy, who's really active still in the biofeedback community, taught me how to meditate. And I started astral traveling back when I was
Oh my
12, when I
gosh.
started meditating.
Wow.
And so meditating and using the biofeedback principles. And so that's always been one of my tools. And then when I was working for ICEAM, learning the vast, like the breadth of understanding of healing and wellness and prevention, really looking at prevention as a thing versus the system that we have now is really a sickness system. People use it when they're sick, and this Hike for Evolution work, we are really looking at taking people from where they are right now. You might be really great doing what you're doing, feeling great, doing stress management. But when you begin to use the somatic practices from the Hike for Evolution system and then combine it with biofeedback, with that mirror technology where you can see what's going on inside of your body through either biofeedback instrumentation or through neurofeedback instrumentation, it accelerates your own self-understanding, your own self-evolution, your own energy in ways that very few things can. So that was very interesting to me. After I worked for ICEAM, I went and got a master's degree and became a psychotherapist. And so I've been using this material in my practice with all of my students, whether they are all of my clients, whether they are young children or whether they are, across the lifespan, because it really works for everybody.
Wow. Well, how deeply did you go into Lyanna's work with her about um, what I'm hearing now from a few other people? So I'm going to tell stories. So here, just for a second, all right? There's a very famous, I don't even know what to call him because he is so eclectic and so good, Greg Braden, who is really a a wonderful, wonderful soul and exemplar of what it means to be a conscious human being, and who has been a student of the ancient mysteries and the ancient spiritual work, etc., and is bringing it all contemporarily to the world, etc. And he's representing what he calls, the cutting edge of what science is developing along these lines, okay? Because Lyanna is very much a scientist. And anyway, they're talking about he's talking about the brain frequencies, et cetera. And so this is only a couple of years ago where he's saying, well, we're discovering that there's a level of brain frequency called gamma, okay? And that people can, go all the way up to 100 on gamma. And it's like, I notified his office and I simply said, I've gone to the 200 level many, many times, and that was a decade ago. I never got a call back, but I mean, that's what Lyanna's work does. I
Yeah,
mean, it takes people so deep and so far and so powerfully. It's
yeah,
just it's absolutely remarkable because the experiences you have once you've opened those channels,
yeah,
okay, is extraordinary. So
yeah.
talk to us about how you work with that because that's really going to give people something wonderful if they can do that.
Yeah. Yeah, well, one of the main principles of the Hike for Evolution system is somatic practice. So there's mindfulness, there's meditation, but there's also conscious movement. And the conscious movement is one of the key principles because our bodies are this vehicle for all of the energy that we embody, that we bring through this lifetime that we are living in this present moment. And when we move our bodies in particular ways, we open the channels, like you mentioned. Lyanna calls them pathways. Um,
Yes, yes,
they can
okay.
be referred to as the meridians. There are meridians inside of our bodies, but there are also meridians in the field surrounding our bodies. And so as we use these somatic principles combined with, or these somatic practices, also called practices of power, along with meditation, along with mindfulness, with particular analogies and metaphors and storylines to really
Yes,
get familiar with your subconscious levels of mind. We're not just
Hmm.
doing a mental or intellectual exercise. We're actually changing our physiology, which is exactly what needs to happen. You can go to 250 gamma, but if your body can't hold that kind of frequency, you're not going to be able to hold that
Yes,
frequency in your brain. And you can actually hurt yourself if
yes,
you're
yes.
just training gamma, but you're not shifting the physiology to bring it along with
Yes.
the body.
This is almost like athletic training,
Absolutely.
where you just have to build the capacity and build the capacity. And she did that very gently and easily with me, but it was the rapidity of how quickly some things happened for me that just shocked me. I mean, it was just unreal. Um, and so this didn't happen in each and every session that we had together, but there were several that are pretty hard to describe without people thinking that you've just gone off the rails.
Yeah. And as many of us know, when we're talking about spiritual things, when we're talking about energetic things, the second
Yes.
you name it, it takes away from the actual felt, perceived experience that we've had individually. It's really hard to impart that peak experience to somebody else through words because there's so much going on at those other levels of mind, at those other energetic levels. And so I think words always just kind of they miss the point.
Well, they do. They do. So, tell us more. You're doing psychiatric work with people. You're using the tools. Um, Sort of how long ago did you actually step into the career that way?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I have been formally teaching this material in the classroom. I was teaching it to elementary school kids in 2015. Prior to that, I was using this material softly with myself as a personal practice, intermittently in between going to college and raising a kid and, figuring out what I was going to do with my life. And yet there was always,
You too?
yes, yes, there was always this little Yoda person, Leanna, kind of at the sending out the emails, encouraging us at right timing to do certain kinds of practices. In 2015, when I was teaching in the elementary schools for the mental health center,
Hmm.
I became a conference chair for a conference called Council Grove. And Council Grove was basically the mother conference for the International Society for the Study of Subtle Energies and Energy Medicine. So I was invited to chair this conference. And of course, Leanna was first on my list to have her come talk. And when I called her and said, "Will you please come speak?" She said, "I will speak at your conference if you'll take your practices seriously." She held my feet to the fire and she invited me to a retreat that was happening right after I made that invitation to her. And it was then in 2015 that I really stepped on this path of Hike for Evolution and began using the material really purposefully. And um I feel bad that I hadn't started it earlier because I would be so much farther along. But that is part of being human is we have to work through our own stubbornness and our own mental blocks and emotional blocks and oh, I'm too busy and all of these things. And what's really remarkable about this system is, gosh, Bill, you and I, just reading one of the papers that she's written over the years takes a lot of focus and concentration because, like you said, she's just brilliant and such a bright mind. But it takes a lot of energy to just assimilate that information. But when you just go to the practices, they get you exactly where you need to go. And so I've been doing these practices 5 to 7 minutes a day for the last 10 years. And my personal evolution is like on steroids now, just in terms of quiet mind, ability to regulate emotions, um, having insights like what you're talking about, spiritual partners, having that conversation with that inner self that is very, very clear and accessible, which wasn't possible before I began actually doing the work. Otherwise, it's just an intellectual exercise and it's fun to think about, but it doesn't really get you where you and I want to be going.
Well, let's just pretend that our audience here would really like to be going there too.
Yeah.
Okay. So what are some, let's call it initial steps that people take or you have them initially take, um, and what do they open? Where does the pathway begin if someone wants to do this work?
Yeah. I think it's the same first step that anybody would take if they're climbing on a spiritual path. I think many of us don't recognize that we are climbing on a spiritual path. First step is to be aware. What am I doing here? What do I need? What am I looking for? What am I aware of? And then learn how to ground, learn how to center yourself, learn how to let go of everything, learn how to nourish.
There's a trick.
There is a trick, but there are practices that you can use to do that.
Yeah.
So ground, center, clean, that's the letting go, nourish, shield. All of these are steps along the path. And like you said, it's repetitive. Rinse and repeat. Rinse and repeat. Do the practices, notice the insights, be aware, ground, center, nourish, let go, let go, let go. And so many people who are listening to this video or watching this video, listening to the audio, might be doing some of those things like grounding and centering and purposefully letting
True.
go of tension or stress or problems or attachments, building discernment. All of these are principles of developing that awareness of the inner life. It's really that an exploration of the inner landscape.
Um, the Let me back up just one step because you talked about these scientific papers that she was writing and you were reading and how deep and complex they were. Lyanna's native language is Spanish, and she came to English late. And it turns out that she has struggled with, and I fully understand this, all right, that to express ideas that you deeply, deeply understand, etc., in your own native language, but to express them in a foreign language in an equally coherent and persuasive way is not easy. So I became, in fact, before you really got into this, the translator of of what I called Lyanna-ese, which was her her best attempt
Yeah.
to get these ideas into a form of English, and then I would go from there. And then once she would read what I tried to translate, okay, do I have it right? Is this really? Oh yes, oh yes, oh yes, or oh no. But she could read the English, but having to put it out in English was really a challenge. So I was the designated translator in a number of cases because the concepts are absolutely not straightforward in terms of how deeply she understands how this entire system works.
Yeah.
Because you have mentioned I mean, a dozen words, grounding, centering, aligning, da, da, da. I mean, all of those are in some ways common practices, some of them in psychological work of this kind. But other things are absolutely different. And if you could write a book, a chapter at least of a book on a word, in terms of what that really means in terms of this system. So
Y-
anyway, just I've had some experience with the complexity of this, and trying to project it out in English
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. And one of the things that she says over and over again is intellectual information is not alone, is not enough to change or to evolve yourself. And so combining all of that intellectual information that you're talking about, and I think all of her students have kind of been in that position of translating those papers. And I think part of that is a little bit tricky. It's kind of her trick of getting you looking at the material at on multiple levels and layers. And as we're reading these papers and then practicing the practices, it starts to weave together in a way that is unusual and is accelerating. So it's really cool.
Yeah. Um, this is something that none of us has talked about yet in the interviews I've been doing with your other spirit partner colleagues. But there is a system out there that we call the Enneagram.
Yeah.
Okay. And people work with the Enneagram and the energies in the Enneagram in a variety of ways. Well, I found Lyanna's understanding of this to be so much deeper and so, oh my goodness, so much more powerful as the result of understanding almost the internal dynamics of how the patterns within the Enneagram unfold. Um, it's just remarkable as an example that's of something that's sort of out there in the world. I mean, she just takes it absolutely to a deeper level.
Yeah, to the moon, really, and beyond, out into the cosmos. And she does use the Enneagram. The Enneagram is a significant tool. We'll just call it a
Yep,
tool.
absolutely, perfect word.
Yep, and that describes the pathways of development versus it being a personality tool. It's not in this system, in the Hike for Evolution system, the Enneagram is seen as a map and as a map of energies, really, that go
Yes,
through, that we are all of these energies of all of the elements and all of the energies from um, information to wisdom. So, yeah, I love that you brought that in there.
absolutely the case. Well, your brother is involved in the work as well. And
Yeah.
your brother, whom I've only met once and had a conversation with and a ride to the airport, um, it's in an altogether different field.
Yeah.
Um, so, I mean, he's a techno wizard of sorts. Um, what's it like working with him? Because obviously the two of you are working hand in hand in bringing this work forward.
Yeah. Yeah, so my brother Dallas Hawks is he has a master's degree in applied mathematics, which works beautifully with this system because of his analytical capacity is enormous, and he's able to connect with Lyanna in ways that I'm not, because I come from a psychology perspective and he just comes from this math perspective. What it's like working together, uh, it's been a fun journey because um, we've had to use the material to get over ourselves so that we can relate to each other really well, which
Good. Wow.
showed us the value of working on yourself at this level, the way that it opens the way to understand differently, to accept, to be flexible, to be just harmonious with other people. And I love that I got to do that work with my brother and get to that level where we have an understanding, not just physiologically, but also through the biofeedback equipment that we're both trained to use, through the practices that we've both been taught personally and use them personally. We just have an understanding with each other of the material that nobody else has with me unless I'm talking to somebody like you, Bill, who has learned with Lyanna over the years or who's worked with this material. And it's just wonderful to be able to speak about it and to explore more because it is vast. It's vast, it's deep, it's layered, it's incredible.
Well, let me put yet a different context on the work. All right, if I may. Liana, her references back and forth to the many concepts and the many aspects of the work go back to what the Sufis were doing energetically, okay? What other spiritual work, okay? How it relates and connects, etc. But she just, in my, at least in the years that I worked most intensely with her, everything was about the scientific rigor of what she was doing because she was trying to, I think, redefine the field and let the people who were more more scientific realize they hadn't gone far enough, and the people who had popularized some of these concepts realized how deep and much more powerful the concepts actually are than the popularized version. So the blessing was kind of the integration of spiritual with scientific, okay, with her insistence, okay, that she was a scientist and this work was scientific, which it was, which is why she was measuring everything on the computer and how it went, etc. But its most fundamental character is ancient. Its most fundamental character, okay, defines some of the movements that we've known historically as esoteric knowledge, etc. She knew it all. She had studied it all. And by the way, we should mention she had her MD degree at the age of 19. So she was no dummy. Okay. Um, but the blessings that came to me, the depth of some of the experiences I had um, were extraordinary.
Yeah.
I'd like to mention one thing about that. She was the software and the things you've been developing and working with. All right. Well, that was a constant problem because software had only been developed that could measure, you know, what she considered to be a very basic level of this work. And to get software that actually could, with a single sensor in your head at one particular position, measure how high and how far some of this could go, and well, just leave it to there. The software didn't exist. So finally, one day, she got the soft package of software, okay, and I happened to be there, and it was like, oh my gosh. So we get the software all connected, etc., and Bill is going to have this great experience, and it didn't work. It wouldn't load. Okay, it wouldn't load. And she tried every trick in the world to get it to load in the computer, and it wouldn't. And I finally said, Lyanna, the computer and the software is not putting anything into me. The computer and the software is simply measuring what's in me coming out through this point, this place in my head. All right. If the software doesn't work, that doesn't mean I can't do this process.
Yep.
Tell me what to envision,
Yep.
tell me what pathway to activate, and I'll just do it myself. And we simply won't have the data today, but at least, okay. So I did. It was staggering what happened. Okay. It never got measured because she couldn't get the software to work, but there was really an ongoing battle, and she couldn't get anybody in the United States to do it. She had to get this from Canada. Okay. And so, anyway, on and on and on. But the power of this work, I mean, I just keep emphasizing this. The things that doing the work evoked inside of my layers of consciousness that I didn't even know I had were just extraordinary. And she'd just say, envision this, go there and see what happens. And unreal, just absolutely unreal in terms of what was revealed and what so tangibly you experience on the inside from it.
Yep. Yes, and that was driven not just by her knowledge as a medical doctor, but her experience in the monasteries where she lived with her teachers who taught her Sufism, who taught her
Yes.
nautical techniques, who taught her Buddhism, Zen practices, all of these practices that she put together and then combined with biofeedback and neurofeedback. And the biofeedback and neurofeedback, like you said, doesn't do anything to the practitioner. It actually just mirrors back what's happening in the body. But when you have that information, then your awareness and your consciousness expands exponentially. And luckily, within the last 5 years, I think it was 2019 when Thought Technology finally built that system for her. So we have a proprietary biofeedback, neurofeedback system
Okay. Oh,
that
wonderful.
does monopolar EEG with thermal, with heart rate variability, with electrodermal response. And so all of that in one little system, in one little transformer, uh, is significantly less than any of the biofeedback and neurofeedback systems that are available on the market today. And what's really cool is it's super easy to use, and we're training
Oh,
people to
wonderful.
train themselves. And but you don't even need the biofeedback equipment. You can get it. And what happens is when you use these practices, you can you're reorganizing your mind, you're reorganizing your energy, you're reorganizing your emotional chemistries, and you can just use practices to do that. But when you add biofeedback and neurofeedback training to it, it makes it exponentially faster.
Incredible. Incredible. Now, how can one benefit from the work you're doing now with, I call it the machines, okay? If you're not in Colorado working with you face to face.
Yeah,
And what,
if somebody's interested in learning how to train themselves, then we can make equipment available to them. Um, they would just place an order and then get their machine, and then we would mentor them via Zoom, the way that we're doing now, just chatting about it. So there are definitely ways people could travel to Colorado and learn how to use machines, do it online. I mean, there are so many options now, but it's available to the public. You'd have to apply for it because we just don't train just anybody. We want to make sure that people's goals are in alignment with
Absolutely.
what's happening in the world. And we're not training neophyte shamans. We are training people who want to become all they want to be. And that requires a certain dedication and intentionality. And but it's available. I mean, it's available. Just get in touch with Bill or myself.
Um, you just said a magic word, shaman. All right. So my anecdotal story, I had been doing and working with a shaman in the deserts of Utah over a period of 6 years before I met Lyanna. And so I told her that, I had had all these kinds of things and that was fine and that was good, but then she'd come back and say, but then this is scientific. It's, so she'd say that. So after I got to know her work and had had a couple of just extraordinary, amazing experiences, I told the shaman about her. Okay. So I was working back and forth with the two of them. And it was about a year later. And the shaman says to me, boy, this woman you're working with in Colorado really is something, because what was happening for me out in the desert, okay, was that, and Lyanna was saying, boy, this shaman that you're working with in the desert is really something, because the the experiences and what was happening was getting so much incredibly deeper. So it was like, okay, this is not a totter. This is like a stair step, and it's just getting higher and higher and better. And one is not canceling out the other. It was absolutely adding to and
Yeah,
embellishing what was happening
yeah.
and what I was able to experience. And then when I would work with other people on, additionally, all of that would just immediately come into the work, and it would go higher and better too.
Yeah. It's really exciting. I love that you shared that experience with the two different kinds of mystery school, I'll say.
Yes, yes, indeed.
So many of the practices are from mystery schools. And um but what Leanna has done by really pinning it down in science is giving what the ancients have always known, and that is this works.
Yes,
She's given it that Western perspective where people can really look at it and gather data on themselves. Like, if I do this practice, what happens to my brain chemistry? And the cool thing about it is you can actually see. So it's wonderful to not just have this mysterious thing going on, that you can actually pin it down and reference it in science. It's beautiful.
yeah. Let's be clear to our audience that the bio and the neurofeedback, okay, is simply the computer isn't putting anything into you. Okay, it is not sending you vibrations it is simply registering how different biological processes and mental processes, etc., are resonating and functioning, and at what levels they're resonating and functioning. So it's why I could say at that time when the computer wouldn't work, well, it's not putting anything in. All
Let's just do
right.
the work.
So let's do the work. Tell me what you want me to envision, etc., and I'll do the work. And it turned out to be quite something anyway.
So much so. Yeah, I mean, it's people don't recognize that the temperature of their hands has an effect on their emotional chemistry. When you can learn to warm your
Whoa.
hands with biofeedback equipment, you have a correlating effect on your emotional chemistry. That's science.
I worked with a man who's a remarkable sound healer, Tom Kenyon. I don't know if you know about Tom or not. He's got a 4-octave voice range. He channels these amazing beings called the Hathors, and they're sending him sound messages and they're sending him other, messages all the time, okay, that enhances his work, etc. So I've gone to several things that he has done, including a 2-week trip to the ancient temples in Egypt, et cetera, et cetera, and just hold this man in incredible awe. Well, one day, um, after I had done quite a bit of work with her, I was helping her supervise this workshop she was doing for this whole group of people that had come up from South America. So I was kind of handyman and running errands and doing all of this. But she finally let me have my own experience, okay, on the computer, because otherwise these people were doing that. So I'm without warming up, as it were, I'm ready to go in and just get connected to the computer and see what happens. And just before I go in, she said, by the way, she liked to call me William, okay, instead of Bill. And she called me Williams, okay, Williams. And she whispers in my ear, okay, do this, okay, energetically circulate here and go there and see what happens. Otherwise, I was going in blank, okay, because this is a secret thing she learned in the monasteries, etc. I went in and did fairly standard stuff for about 20 minutes. Okay, the computer was registering this and that. And I went into Tom Kenyon. And my voice could go so low, you couldn't believe it. I mean, never, ever has it gone that low, and never, ever had it gone that high. And I was sitting in the room all by myself for 2.5 hours, and she wouldn't let anybody in. And I'm these things are happening to me that have absolutely never happened. And it's because she had told me this secret thing about how to move this little pathway of energy.
Yeah.
It was absolute. I mean, oh my gosh, I will just never, never forget that experience.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there to myself saying, am I really doing this? And it's this just thunderously low thing and this thunderously high thing. I mean, I opened up so much. It was extraordinary.
Yeah. Did you continue using that practice?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh yes. It really activates things. I never became Tom Kenyon again, but
Yes.
I mean, really, yes, it's something that I use and do, even though it's verboten. So
Well, she taught it to you, so it's not forbidden to you. It would be forbidden to you for you to teach me. But
yes, yes,
what I love about that is as you use that practice, it becomes part of your neural pathways, and then you can access it on demand.
absolutely. When you learn these things and when you learn where the pathways, see, because the pathways are not just neural, the pathways are through the body,
Yep.
through specific channel, I call them channels in the body, and out into the ether.
Yep.
And they're connecting with all time, all phenomena, all possibilities, depending on what she's asking you to envision.
Yeah.
I mean, it's absolutely extraordinary. And the point is, it benefits how you live your life.
Yeah. It
It
absolutely.
benefits, yeah. I mean, this is not about let's go have a woo woo experience. Okay. It's absolutely translatable to the way everything functions and how you approach everything.
Yep. It's so true. Yeah, and I think one of the things that deters people is it actually takes effort. You really have to use this work. You can't just read about it and have it transform
Correct.
you. This is one of the quotes that I use all of the time from Leanna is real change comes through the application of high will
Mm.
developed through the discipline of daily practice. And so, as you practice your daily activities on a regular basis and you develop that discipline, you create something called high will. She now calls it Higg will, Higg, after the Higg boson.
Oh, I
And
see.
as we develop this, it becomes a gasoline that then fuels we store this gasoline in our cups, dantians, and it becomes a more rarefied form of vitality that we can all use intentionally to create the lives that we want to create.
Bravo. And you're bringing that to the world.
Yeah, it's pretty cool stuff. It's
It's
transformed my
it's
life for
pretty, it's
sure.
pretty, it's pretty cool stuff, etc. So what I have been telling friends and other people is that the way to more find out more about this and reach you is a website called HIKE in all cap letters, the number four, hike four, and then the word evolution.
That's right.
And there you are.
Yeah.
And oh boy, I mean, the I so admire what you're doing, and I so appreciate you joining us here on Spirit Partners because I knew you were going to add just an absolutely critical component to the gifts that our other colleagues, who you'll be meeting and learning about, um, what they're bringing, because
Beautiful.
it's a very fascinating combination, and I've been the beneficiary of the work of all of it,
Love it.
and and therefore that's what compelled me, to ultimately put this together. I
Yeah.
mean, I literally in the last year have given up all the work that I was doing internationally in education, and trying to bring about transformation in that system across the world with whatever country, and it's like, no, I'm long overdue
Yeah.
in bringing this kind of thing forward and being a translator
Yeah.
for, and a vehicle, I'm not an advertising agent, but I absolutely want people to know what people like you are doing. It's
Yeah.
just absolutely wonderful.
Oh, well, I'm just really happy to participate, Bill, and I'm glad that you're doing the work that you're doing because you're making it easy for people to find useful tools. And I think the
Yeah,
world as it
thank
is
you.
right now, a lot more people are going to need a lot more transformative learning skills. And
Absolutely.
this is a place for that.
Yeah, the world is out there suffering with, frustration frustration of every kind. Okay, you name it, and they've got it. And separation anxiety. I mean, the whole system. I'm so glad that you've come aboard here and have that to share. And we'll plan out what we might talk about next time, and I'll let you absolutely bring maybe some more practical tools into one of our sessions.
Love that.
That would be, oh,
Me too.
super. Okay,
Okay.
guaranteed. Thank you profoundly, folks. Wow. I mean, this has been absolutely more wonderful than I ever anticipated, because I did, boy, my expectation was sky high.
Right
So
on.
thank you. We'll do more next time soon. Our next time will be soon. And delighted, just delighted that you're doing this with us.
Yeah, happy
Oh,
to be here now.
good. Thank you. And folks, see you again soon. And yeah, keep visiting the videos and expanding your awareness and horizons. Thank you.